In today's video, I want to deep dive into weapon mastery, something that was going to be found in the new 2024 Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons. GameMasters here, and weapons have always been a base element in D&D, but more times than not, combat boils down to, I swing my sword, I rolled a 12, did I hit? Weapon mastery should help both with the mechanics of combat, but also with a strategy that can benefit the party, and I'll list out what I mean as we explore the different types of weapon mastery. Each of the mastery properties of any given weapon will also have a prerequisite of a weapon property. For example, the weapon of mastery of Nick has a weapon property prerequisite of light, which basically means it's going to usually be found on lightweight weapons such as a dagger. But for today's video, we're going to focus purely on what the mastery properties themselves can do and not what the prerequisites are. Cleave can be found on weapons like Great Axe. If you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can make an attack roll with the same weapon against a second creature within 5 feet of the first. It still has to be within your reach, and on a hit, that second creature takes the weapon's damage, except you don't add your ability modifier to that damage. You can do this attack once per turn. In homebrew games, we sort of use this, but we'd let the attack hit however many targets were within reach. It only did weapon damage, but each target beyond the first you had to roll at disadvantage to hit. But otherwise, if you were surrounded by 5 enemies, cleave them and whirlwind away. And if I'm being completely honest, we started kind of doing this years ago on the Warrior's Cleave and whirlwind ability based from World of Warcraft. It's nice to see something that gives a massive axe wielder fighter something that can do a touch of area damage in Dungeons & Dragons. Graze can be found on large weapons like glaives and greatswords. You've basically become so adept at using this weapon that even if you miss, you'll still be able to do a small amount of damage to your target. If your attack roll misses, you can deal damage equal to the ability modifier that you use to make the attack roll. It's still going to be the same type of damage as the weapon type. So for example, if you used a greatsword, it would still do slashing damage. Graze means that you'll dish out some form of damage, which makes each swing of your weapon meaningful. While the damage might not be as great as it could be, it will at least be something, which in turn dissolves the frustration of missing completely, and it ensures that when you do swing this weapon, that your presence in the battle will still have a impact. Might be small, but you'll still have an impact. Nick can be found on smaller weapons like daggers, which have the light weapon property. Normally, the weapon property of light allows you to use a bonus action to make a second attack. However, weapon mastery of Nick allows you to make the extra attack from that light property as part of your main attack instead of as a bonus action. This basically frees up your bonus action and is a perfect complement to, say, a rogue, for example. Imagine being able to attack with your dagger, use its weapon mastery of Nick for a second attack, but then being able to hide as a bonus action. Push can be found on weapons like Great Club, but also on long-reaching weapons like a pike, but it can also be found on the heavy crossbow. Without even going into its description, imagine being hit with any of those weapons. The Great Club is massive. It's going to knock your socks off. The pike, when it hits, can push you to the ground, and the bolt from a heavy crossbow is going to hit with such an impact that you're likely going to get staggered back. A weapon with the mastery of push has the ability to push a creature up to 10 feet straight away from you without them getting a save. Imagine pushing someone off a cliff and they have no way to make a save or maybe even into lava. And again, they can't make a save. We're told that there are limitations. For example, you wouldn't be able to push an adult red dragon off a cliff. Sap can be found on weapons like the mace and even longswords. Sap lets you hit an enemy, and in turn it causes that creature to have disadvantage on its next attack roll. Consider it like this. You've just knocked the out of your enemy, and they are now standing there head spinning. They can still attack, they just see 2 of you, so they aren't really sure which one they should attack. It doesn't daze them or cause them to be otherwise incapacitated. They just have a disadvantage. I rather like the visual, though, of the enemy having been hit so hard that they see double. You know, and that almost needs to be a condition. Can we add that to our homebrew list? I mean, call it seeing double. They get hit so hard that they see double and have disadvantage. What if the creature has the seeing double condition and then is hit with sap? Would they then get to roll 3 dice and take the lowest, like super disadvantage? I don't know. Haven't gotten that far into my thought process yet. Slow can be found on weapons like longbows, whips, and slings. Imagine that a big bad is coming towards you at full speed of 30. That's a pretty quick pace, but with slow you can whip your whip or shoot your longbow and it will reduce the creature's speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. While this doesn't stack, you can't just hit the enemy and slow it by 10 feet, then do it again slowing it by an additional 10 feet. And I'm already considering homebrewing it to allow for that. I realize that slow wears off at the start of your next turn, but if I've just been shot in the foot or leg and my speed has been reduced by 10 feet, unless someone has healed me, that arrow or rock from your sling is still in there. And I don't see my speed just miraculously increasing. Further, what happens if I'm shot in my other foot? Topple can be found on weapons such as a trident or maul or quarterstaff. When using the weapon mastery Topple and you hit a creature, that creature must make a constitution saving throw, otherwise they take on the prone condition. The example we were provided with explains that a level 5 fighter can use a maul's Topple weapon mastery to knock an opponent prone. Then they can use their second attack to action surge to make multiple attacks with advantage. Combine that with party members that are also in range, suddenly combat in Dungeons & Dragons has become a lot more brutal. Vex can be found on weapons like blowguns, short swords, even hand crossbows. If you hit a creature with a weapon that has the mastery of Vex, then your next attack on that creature is done with advantage. Imagine being a rogue with a dagger that has a weapon mastery of Nick, and a short sword with a weapon mastery of Vex. And this is almost always going to ensure that you'll be able to sneak attack. Also, these weapon mastery properties can be used every time you swing the weapon. Initially, I was not a fan of this mechanic. I felt that it was adding something else to slow down combat. But a member in my Discord pointed out that D&D is trying to make martial weapons more involved. That casters have such a versatility with their spells descriptions that, as I mentioned at the top of the video, that weapon wielders usually end up with the mentality of, I swing my sword. Weapon mastery gives martial weapons a touch of flair and the ability to embellish descriptions, but at the same time, the ability to perform something physically additional other than simply swinging or shooting their weapon. So, in that view, weapon mastery is growing on me the more I think about it. Not to mention that combining the different masteries and weapon attacks can really turn combat into a party-wide strategy. Communication will be key, but the combinations that players will be able to pull off are going to be pretty spectacular. One thing's for sure, it's going to make creating combat scenarios a touch more difficult for me as a dungeon master, mainly because I'm going to have to keep all of these maneuvers in mind when I decide to throw a band of big bad guys at the party. I want to thank everyone for joining the video today. My name is Brian, and I've been playing and running role-playing games since the 1980s. I also want to thank all of my channel supporters, as their contributions have made it so that I didn't need to take on a sponsored ad for this video. If you'd like to join as a supporter, either here or on YouTube or over on Patreon, I'll leave a link down in the description. Patreon members get access to all kinds of fun extras, such as handcrafted adventures and, of course, a special section in the GameMasters Discord. And do be sure to check out our rockin' Discord. We get up to some lively chats in there. Again, the link to that is down below in the description. What are some fun, wicked combinations you can come up with? Right off the top of my head, I can see a cleric swinging a mace with a weapon mastery of sap, giving that enemy disadvantage, then having the fighter swing down with Topple, while the rogue steps in to hit with their dagger with Nick. I mean, combat is going to get nasty. But let me know what kind of combos you can come up with down in the comments. And until next our paths cross, may you not find yourself knocked off a cliff or into a pit of lava, because the enemy could potentially have weapon mastery on their own weapons too, couldn't they?